As part of an IoT platform which I'm currently building, I would like to show you in this tutorial how to more or less have a platform or an app, doesn't really matter, where you can have the possibility to allow your users to bring their own code and then be able to execute it on your own platform. So for this example, I'm going to show you this for 3 languages. So we should be able to do this in WebAssembly, in Python, and JavaScript. Our core platform, of course, would still be in Rust, but we'll give our users the possibility to run their JavaScript or Python or WebAssembly code on our platform. And to do that, of course, I've come over here to create a new project. It's completely empty. So I'm going to simply just initialize a new project and say cargo init, and everything I'm going to do would live inside this main file. I don't want us to really overcomplicate this. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so we can have more real estate to work. So to serve this, of course, I'm going to be using Actix. So this is going to be like an Actix application in the end. So I would need to bring in my dependencies. So Actix Web, I would need version 4. Next, I'm going to use, of course, is Server because I'm going to be doing some serializations. So version would be 1.0. And for features, I think my Tomo IntelliSense is no longer, I have to check it out to see what's actually going on. Okay, so I need Setter. I also need Setter JSON. And for this, I'm going to also use version 1.0. And of course, I need the runtime for my WebAssembly. So I will need Wasmtime. And this is going to be version 12. And I also need Tokyo because, again, you already know. So I need to make some specifications. I need to provide version. So the version I'm going for will still be 1. And features, I'm just going to say full for now because I don't know what I would be needing in the end, but let me keep it simple. And then, of course, for Python, I need Py03. And for Py03, the version is going to be version 0.18. And features, I would add 2 features basically. I need extension module, and I also need auto initialize. And last but not the least of our JavaScript, I will need the Deno Core, and this is going to be version 0.316. Just say 0.0. So that's all the dependencies we'll be needing. I would give that a couple of minutes to install, as you can see over here, my Rust Analyzer, and then we would really jump right in and start writing some code without wasting so much time. So now we have all our dependencies installed. I'm just going to go ahead and start setting up our server. So I'm gonna use this main function, but of course I need to make this use the Tokyo runtime. So I can say Actix Web main common, and now of course our main function should be a sync. And in here now I can start setting up my server. So HTTP server and new, and for the setting of the factor I'm going to use I'm going to use an anonymous function. And in here, pretty straightforward, what I will simply do is app, we call the new method, and then now I can come on, add some services. So service, and now I can provide my service. I can maybe use a 2-line and say web, also from Actix, web.resource, and I provide a path. So this is going to go to execute. I'm going to call it execute WASM to really specify what's actually going on. And then I say dot to route. I'm sorry, I can simply say dot route. And then now I provide my This is going to be web posts, and then it's going to go to, and the handler, I'm just going to call this execute WASM. Okay, and of course it's going to complain because this is not defined, but I'm going to duplicate this couple of times to accommodate all the other endpoints we would have. So I would need here JS, and here I would need execute py. So I'm also going to update that here, execute py, and this would become execute JS. And now, of course, I need to complete this. So I can say dot bind, and I provide an address. So this is going to be at 127.0.0.1, and we'll run this at port 8080. And now I can say dot run, dot bind, dot run. Of course, why am I getting? And of course, this returns an option. So I need to handle this, and come on, and I can say dot run and dot await, and I can get rid of this guy, and our server should be fine. Of course, now I need to update the return type because now it doesn't take account to the return type here. So I'm going to go quite fast here because that's really not the point of this. So this is good. I'm going to go, sorry, result, and I'm not going to return anything actually. So I'll keep it as simple as this. But now, as you can see, we have to go ahead and implement all of these endpoints. So that's also totally fine. So I'm going to start with the easiest or the simplest one, I think. So I'm going to create an async function called execute.js. So it's going to take some params, and the params is I'm going to be, of course, a JSON. So I can say web.json, and I need to provide a type, and I can call this JS request. That's what I'm going to call this. And then, of course, the response type should be able to implement responder. Okay. And of course, syntax error here. And why am I getting an error here? Okay, of course, the return type is not there yet. So, but for this, again, I need to create this. So I'm going to say struct that's going to represent this for me. And it's just going to have one thing. I can call this file path. This is going to be a string. And that's all. So it's going to be a string. Maybe the only thing, of course, I would need to, of course, do is to add, to implement, of course, the serialize macros. I said derive the serialize, and this should be now fine. So now I can just go ahead and implement the body of this function. Should be pretty straightforward. And maybe to get rid of too many errors, I want to focus on what I am working on at the moment. So what we can now do, of course, is to come here, and the first thing I would do is to show you how easy this is. So I'll read the JS file, pretty straightforward. So I can say let's script. So my script is going to come from fs, is going from file system. So I say fs, I don't even have this read to string, this one. And to provide the path, this is going to come from params dot file path. And of course, now I get a result. So what I can simply do here is to match this result and then handle the result. So if I get if I'm able to read the file, I'm going to call this content. So if I'm able to read this file, simply proceed with this content. But if I'm not able to read this file, and I get an error, what I would like to do, of course, will be to return to the user here. So I can say HTTP response. And I can say HTTP response dot bad request because I need to specify. And I can say provide a body. For the body, I'm just going to format this error that I got. So I can use the format macro, which is down here. And now I can simply say something like error reading.js file. And I would like to, of course, provide more context. So for that, I'm just gonna dump in that error here in the request. And that should be fine. Okay, and let me see. My IntelliSense is misbehaving again. Okay, I think it's because I'm still not returning anything. That's also fine. So now what I would like to do is to create a JavaScript runtime. So I say create a JS runtime. And to do that, I'm just going to use JS Core. So I use JS run, come on, JS runtime. I can say that's command dot new. And now I provide my options. I'm just going to use the default options. So I can say runtime options, and I use the default. And now I have my runtime, so I can call this runtime. And I have my runtime. And the next thing I can do is now just go ahead and execute JS. Okay, so I expect some results. I'm not sure yet, but if there is, we should be able to catch it. So I can say runtime.execute script, and I give it a name. I can call this. So this name could actually come from I don't know. For now I'm just gonna call this JS func. And then for the source code, I'm simply gonna pass our script. Okay. And that's actually all we need to execute this. But again, if you see here, we get a result, and now what you can simply do, of course, is to match results, and that will be the end of our endpoint. So if went successfully well, assuming we got some return value, so we have the option of returning this back to the user. Maybe I don't even need to add this body, so I can simply say HTTP response. That's okay because we want to return a 200, and I want to provide a body. And the body, I'm just gonna maybe also use the formats. Come on, formats macro, and then I can simply say something like JS execute. If I can type JS executed successfully, I can say return, I don't know, return value, something like this. I'm not sure. Let me see. Maybe I try to already make it easy for me to deserialize this. And I can pass the value in if this went successfully. Otherwise, what I can simply do is, of course, handle the error here. So we get an error. And again, I'm going to do something that's similar to this one. So again, I'm just going to copy this. And here, instead of bad request, I would like to maybe say internal server error. And maybe I say it's, I want to make the error as descriptive as possible. I can say JS execution error, something like this. And of course, this turns out that it mutates this request, so we need to make our runtime mutable. And that should fix that for us. And that's really is mostly all we need basically to execute our JavaScript function. So what I can now simply do is to maybe come down here, create a file, and I can call this script.js. And then here, maybe I actually do something quite simple. I can say function, sorry, 1 second. I'll do like this, add. And this is a function that's, I don't know, maybe I want to keep it simple. Maybe I'll throw in a console log in here. And then down here, I simply call add. Let me see. What I can also do is to provide A and B as arguments. Maybe let me make it to look like JavaScript. So I call this function add and get rid of these parts. And now I can say something like the the result is, and in here I can say do some like can I think I should be able to. Okay, I'll keep it simple. I say A plus B. And that's it. And then this should be able, this is our JavaScript file. So now what we have to do is when we run our server, when we visit this endpoint, we simply provide this file and then hopefully it executes it for us. So now I can say cargo run and give that a couple of minutes to build. And then we can come back and execute our file. So the compilation is done and now we can actually just test out the server. And I'm going to copy a curl request I already wrote. Also paste it in here. So you see, so basically it's a post request at this endpoint. So the content type is JSON, and inside it we are providing a single argument within this JSON called file path, and then that's just pointing us to script.js, which is what we already written over here, this one. Okay, now so we just go ahead and make the request, and you see here actually went as we expected. And because if we look over here, we have this console, and now I get a none. So let me see why I actually got that. I don't think I provided any arguments. Yes. And the error can also be seen here because in the script, nothing is actually provided. So I can say 45 and 67. I'll actually provide those arguments. And let me see if I need to restart the server. I just hit this again. And now it actually works because also, if you see over here, we also get our log and we also get our responses. So it executed successfully. So that's actually pretty straightforward. As we can see, of course, I'm showing this to show you what's possible. So that's like myself, if you're working on something similar, you can also have an idea of how you can actually go about it. So for my own case, it's probably a lot more complex than this because there are a lot of other things in the end, but the underlying aspect of the whole thing is basically what I'm showing you. Yeah, you can add every other thing you would need to add in the end to whatever. I don't know, doesn't really matter depending on the complexity, but the underlying content would still remain this. So, okay, guys, let's proceed. I'm gonna come over here now to implement. Maybe I also start with Pi because it's probably going to be a lot easier, and we can proceed to implement our function. Okay, so let's proceed. I'm probably going to stop the server. I don't need that anymore and close the terminal. And now I can come maybe down here and create this new function. So of course it has to be async. So async fn, I call this execute pi. And it's also going to be pretty much similar to what we did for from the JavaScript function. It's also going to be have something like this. So I'm probably just going to copy all of these parts, come down here and paste that. And now, of course, now I would, let me see if we would have a couple different changes for, okay, I'm gonna also create a new struct for our Python to, because I would like to add a few more arguments. So I can call this py request, and I'll add this, of course. And then here I'll also add some similar, so file path will be a string. I would like to add a function name. It's also going to be a string. And I'll probably add an argument, which is going to be an, for now, say I32. Let's keep it quite simple. And now copy this, come down here and replace this with this. Come on, py requests, okay. And now let's implement the body. It's also going to be pretty straightforward, like what we already did for this one. Okay, so I'm going to copy this part again, come down here, because in the end it's virtually going to be the same. So we'll read the code and then we'll execute it. Okay, so at this point we have our script. We've been able to read it from our param. Now what I would like to do now is to basically, like we did before, execute Python. And then here I'm going to use the py03 package. So I can say Python from py03 with GIL. And then here I'll also pass an anonymous function. So I'll call this py. So this will be my Python. And what I can do, let me see. Okay, I can provide a return type. So I'll expect something like pi results, and I provide the type. It's going to be HTTP response. And now I add the body. So within the body is going to be pretty straightforward. So I can say, I can initialize a mod. I can say let pi module. So this is come from pi module. I can say from code. And now I need to provide my runtime, the content, the file name, and the module. So I can call this, of course, this would be my script content. For file name, let me see. Here I'm gonna pass params.file path, and then file name, the module name, I'm gonna maybe call this why is this here? I can call this script module, and then this returns on a result. So I will handle it like this to get us our module. And then with the module, what I can simply do is to get my pi function. So I can say let pi function, and I can use match to go through my pi module, and I use the get attributes. Where is it? At the bottom, get attributes, and here I pass my function name, params function name, and I pass this as a string like this one. And that's mostly it. Now, of course, now handle the two possible scenarios. So if everything is okay, and I get back, come on, I get back a function, I return this function. And if I get an error, for now I'm going to keep it simple. No matter what error I get back, I'm going to return, I can say return okay. And in here, which okay is this? And in here, I can return HTTP response. And I can say bad request. And maybe also something similar here. I don't want to type this whole thing out, so I just copy this and replace it with this. Actually should be an error 20, not okay, and I return an error back. So, but now with the function, what I can simply do is I close this up, and what I can simply do here is to execute my function. So I can say py function. Where did that go to? Py function. And now I can say call one. Is it called? I think. Yes, this one. And now I provide my args, and I provide this, of course, as a tuple. So this also comes from my params. Say params.arg, and I provide this as a tuple. And again, I handle my error because it's going to return a result, and I extract my response basically. And now what I can simply do is to match this and add that to a new argument called results. I expect it to give me, let's say, an I32. Okay, and now I simply match this. Then in here, I again have to handle the two things. So if it is okay, I have a value, and that's what I'm going to return to my results. And if it is an error, will I get an error? Now I return again. Okay, and I close this off. And afterwards, now I return to the user. Okay, HTTP response, okay. I say JSON, I simply drop this result. Okay, let me see, I have a couple of errors. Let me see why that is. Okay, now everything looks okay. So in the end, of course, I can now undo my errors. If there are any, I can say now unwrap, but maybe I'll also like to return to the user. I can say unwrap or else. Where is it? say unwrap or else, and then I take the error, whichever error it is I get, and I simply return this now to the user. So let me see. So in here I can simply return a, let me see down here, so HTTP response. I can say internal common, internal server error, and I can provide a body, and then again do a format macro. Where is it? Down here. I can say Python error, something like this, and I can actually just dump the error here. And that's mostly it. So everything looks good. So we read our content, we try to execute it, and if everything doesn't go as we expect, then we of course return an error. So I'm gonna copy this, execute py, and then of course I make this available now. And what I can simply do, of course, would be again to run our server, and then we test things out to see how it behaves in the end. So to test our Python function, I'm going to come in here, create a file. I'm probably just going to call this compute.py. And then here I define the function. I can call this compute square. So it's going to take a value x, and it's simply going to return x squared. And that's really it. And now we just, all that's left is for us to test this out. So again, I'm going to use a curl that I already have written, and I'm just going to copy it and paste it here. So again, it's just a JSON payload. The file path is compute.py, which is also what we created over here. Function name is compute square, which is also what you say in here. And argument is simply set. So this should give us 49. And that's also what you see here. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, and now to make it a lot faster, because I don't want us to waste time, I have pre-written the WASM function. So I'm just going to copy it and paste it in here for you to see. It's nothing so fancy about it. I can also just show you in here. So it's also going to be similar to what we had before. So I initialize an engine, and then again I reach the file, and then I added some of this sorry, okay, I'll say added this. I created a struct that's going to define the request, so I'm just going to bring that in as well. So put it up here. Again, it has a file path, function name, and arg. No, basically I think this is wrong. So I've prepared a request again, so I'm just going to copy and paste that in here. So again, I'm going to call this execute WASM request, and that's also what you see in here. So again, we read the file, and we so I need to bring in module, and this is going to come from Wasmtime. So I'm just going to bring that in here in the imports, and that should be fine. And that should take care of that for us. And then we read the file, and then we simply unwrap the module, get a function name, and then execute it. And what that means is that I would have to again come to the root and create a new file that's going to hold our WASM function basically. So I'm going to come in here, create a file. I'm kind of going to call this api.wasm. I'm going to keep this, I'm trying to be as fast as possible, so I'll post this in here. So this is a simple WebAssembly piece of code. So that's what we're going to try to execute basically. So we get to the module, get to the function name, and then we simply execute it. And again, we get our results, or then we try to again pipe this down back to the request. That's what you see down here. So I have to uncomment this so we can be able to reach that endpoint basically. And now I restart our server and try to make this request again to this and then see what we get in the end. So I'm gonna have a curl request again in here, and I'm simply gonna use that one more time. So I paste that in here, and is execute our function. But let me see, are we expecting some results? Let me see. So I guess the endpoint was wrong. So I do that one more time, execute wasm. And now, of course, we don't have any response, but of course, you can see from here we have all these outputs, which I have also put in here for the during the execution time, like is function name, which is also what you see up here, which you are able to extract from this WASM WebAssembly file, basically the module, the function name, and all that. Okay, and so again, we have the arguments that is passed. This also, if you see, that's also what we pass in here. We're also able to read that and then pipe that into our WebAssembly to execute it successfully. So anyway, guys, that's really what I wanted to show you. Is a quick one. It's can get more complex than this, but of course, the underlying basics of how this works is basically what I've shown you in this tutorial. So of course, go ahead, feel free to test this out. I'll also be doing like a much more extensive video in the future. Again, this is going to be part of the project I'm currently working on, which has to do with providing a platform that allows execution of code written in JavaScript, Python, and WebAssembly. I wanted to have something in Rust, but again, I had the problem because I'm still trying to figure out if maybe I would have to, of course, bring in compiled binaries and then execute this using some runtime within the app. This is still something I'm trying to figure out. But for me, one simple, straightforward way, of course, to also work with Rust will be to execute WebAssembly within my app. But again, I'm going to keep you posted in the future when I have this all figured out and have a much more working prototype. Anyways, guys, that will be all. And I hope you actually had something to learn from this video. And yeah, guys, until we see each other again, stay learning and have a lovely evening. Bye bye, guys.